Raid Shadow Legends have drastically increased the amount of IP collabs they've been doing with the game, with 3 of them being within the last 6 months. So it begs the question, statistically speaking, what IPs are likely to come next in 2026? Plarium actually does give hints as to what IPs they are genuinely interested in working with thanks to their responses in the YouTube comments, whilst also shutting down the suggestions for other IPs too. Most of the IPs have been geared towards an older audience, particularly players that have been born in the 80s, with the likes of Masters of the Universe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Alien vs Predator, and perhaps Ronda Rousey can also fall under that category for older wrestling fans. Monster Hunter and Ninja were certainly more focused on the younger audience. That's because Raid actually has a very diverse player base that skews more towards the older average user, with game pitch and analysis materials for investors back in 2019 suggesting the game would have an age range of 18 to 44, with 70% of its audience being male. The closest piece of demographic information about players that we have is this Reddit post from over a year ago, asking how old players were. On average, these self-reported ages hovered between 35 to 55 years old. With this in mind, let's see what Plarium have hinted at in their YouTube comments, and statistically, what are the most likely IPs that will be targeted next. 5th on the list is actually one of Ash's favourites, that being Thundercats, an IP made in 1985 that fits very closely with the TMNT collab. Whilst they won't likely have the same pull as the Turtles, it's clear, for the time being, that Plarium are focusing on collabs with IPs that are less financially risky, with TMNT and Assassin's Creed likely being their 2 most expensive. 4th on the list is Power Rangers, another franchise that fits within the 80s age range and also provides a full team setup of red, blue, yellow, pink and black Power Rangers that would be very easy and cheaper to model within the game. 3rd on the list is Devil May Cry. This was an IP mentioned a few times in the Raid Shadow Legends YouTube comments, and many of them were interacted with by the company. It's not a confirmation, but considering that Plarium openly says if they're interested or not does add value. Devil May Cry is another risk-averse franchise that could target niche audiences that could pull potential new players to the game. Perhaps it would be more of an Alien vs Predator event than a TMNT or Assassin's Creed event. 2nd on the list is Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter was originally going to be on the list, but thematically speaking, Mortal Kombat fits the bill better. I strongly believe that these franchises Plarium chooses must have the ability to be redesigned to fit within the world of Talaria, and if the companies that hold these IPs are too strict with that creativity, then it's likely a no-go. Mortal Kombat, however, would likely need minimal changes to fulfill that goal compared to Street Fighter. And the most likely IP to work with Raid Shadow Legends on the list is God of War. This was the one franchise that was not only requested the most by fans, but was also frequently interacted with by the Raid YouTube account. It's a Western IP that matches with the investor pitch where they estimate 50% of their audience would be US based, and has a perfect balance of audience overlap, as well as not being too gigantic of an IP that would either be too expensive or overwhelming for the game. Kratos, Atreus, Magni and Modi are all champions that would seamlessly fit within the game's thematics, and target most of Raid's existing age demographic. There is already a Thor champion within the game by the name of Thor Feyhammer, so I suspect that the antagonist champion would more likely be Baldur instead. Before we move on to collabs that have been confirmed not to happen, I just want to cover my top 5 collabs that I would like to see in Raid, and also get your thoughts and opinions on them. 5th is Deus Ex Human Revolution. It's a franchise that is just detached enough that Plarium could make it work. We've seen some tech-based abilities like the Predator's Smart Disc, and I think an Adam Jensen could weirdly fit within the game's design. 4th is Fable. This is a very safe franchise that hits that generic fantasy design, but ultimately wouldn't transition at all well into the game. Fable's designs would work within Raid, but its charming British humour wouldn't work whatsoever. Still, I'd be pretty hyped to see it happen anyway. Third is Dragon Ball Z. This is also another lofty idea that in reality wouldn't really work. Not only are the designs of Goku, Vegeta, Trunks and Frieza so wildly different to Raid, it's simply too big of an IP and likely will have a low conversion rate of new players, especially since DBZ mobile games like Dokkan Battle already exist. Pair that with it being likely an extremely expensive IP, I don't think Polarium would be all that interested. Second is Sailor Moon. Many of the current IPs Raid have used have been male-centric characters, and whilst it's a very Eastern IP that would only entice 20% of its demographic, those being Asian players according to pitch documents, Sailor Moon has the capacity to be redesigned to fit within Raid's universe, whilst also providing a female-centric IP to hit their potential 30% female audience. This also fits a 4 to 5 champion team dynamic, much like the TMNT and Assassin's Creed collabs, and potentially an IP that could pull in new female players. It's likely a higher risk franchise though. First, and definitely not least, is Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. This game in particular nails that dark fantasy thematic that just works so well within Raid Shadow Legends. Link, Zelda, Ganon and Sheik from the N64 series specifically would look strikingly iconic if designed by Polarium's incredible art team. There is honestly no way in hell that Nintendo would ever do it, especially now that the Zelda franchise has hit a new peak. But Ocarina of Time would have me pouring hundreds of dollars into the game to get every single champion. Let's finish this video with IPs that are confirmed to not happen and likely will not happen. First is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Raid responded to this request very recently, saying that at this time they're not interested in incorporating it into the game. My main assumption is the use of children characters. From my knowledge, there are none in the game, with Raid circumventing that with a dwarf faction instead. Second is Star Wars. Star Wars would be a very fun franchise to work with in Raid, but not only does it conflict with Raid overall, the IP is simply too gigantic. Not to mention that there's a conflict of interest, as Star Wars Galaxies of Heroes is almost an identical game, so no crossover is likely to ever happen. Third and finally, Dark Souls/Elden Ring. I hear many fans talk about how this would be a perfect collab, but I think that's to its detriment instead. The designs for both of these games are just too similar, and they may just bleed into one another and make it tough for casual players to differentiate between the two, which I suspect both games wouldn't want to happen. And those are the most likely collabs Raid Shadow Legends are likely to pair with in 2026. What do you think of them? Do you agree? And also, what do you think of my wishlist? Finally, what collabs would you like to see? Let me know in the comments down below. And finally, if you're interested in making a new account in Raid Shadow Legends, click our creator link in the pinned comment down below to get up to 3 legendary champions and 3 epic champions absolutely free. It seriously helps out the channel. But besides that guys, I've been Charlie, you've been watching Bovine Raid, and I will see you in the next video.